broke Alyssa Mustangs. So today, for this Wednesday with Willow, I wanted to show you guys how I taught Willow to be comfortable with the weight tape. And as many of you know, the weight tape can come across as a very scary object toward horses, particularly wild horses who have been around scary things like snakes, and that's the first thing I jumped to when presenting this scary object to Willow. So I initially started training her to be comfortable with this weight tape by having her target the weight tape and then rubbing it on her nose. And I rubbed it on her nose just to get her comfortable with its presence and with maybe what it'll sound like when it's on her back. So I did that a few times, counting backwards from 3, and then I would get to the point where she was touching the cone, and the cone is a start button signal, so it tells me to go ahead and touch her back with my hand or later on the weight tape, and I'll be talking more about what that is and the theory behind it in upcoming videos, so be on the look for that. So here I'm telling Willow to calm default, and I'll be explaining more of what that is later on as well. And telling her to calm default is her no signal. So when she calm defaults, that's telling me that I'm putting too much on her and I need to tone it down a bit. So there she told me yes and then no, and so I'm going to honor that no. And then there she told me yes, and so I'm going to go ahead and resume rubbing her with the weight tape, not quite throwing it on her back yet. And this just gets her comfortable with, hey, the weight tape goes on your back, and she doesn't quite understand that it's going to be flung around her back until here. And realize how I'm not cinching it underneath her belly quite yet. I'm getting her comfortable with it just draping over. She can see it on both sides. And when I know she's comfortable with that, I will then, I put it down a little further there so she can see it, and I will later on go ahead and grab it. So, but before I go and grab it, there she spooked a little, so now I'm going to tone it down. I was counting backwards from 5 there. I'm going to count backwards from 3. And so tone it down a little bit for her and let her know, hey, I hear that you're nervous, and so I'm going to tone it down, make it easier, make it to where I know you can succeed. So I'm just resuming exactly what I just did, redoing it just to get her more comfortable with it. So I'm counting backwards from a certain number, and in this case, 5, and I pick 5 because it's a quick number, and I'm just counting good, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and then I click and treat her. So she starts to understand that when I get to 5, and then 3, 2, 1, she understands that she's just a second closer to getting her treats. And I'll be explaining more about the counting later on as well. So there you just saw me wrapping the weight tape underneath Willow's belly, and so this is going to start to where I'm able to take her weight, and so I can correctly deworm her. And next week's video is going to be all about deworming. So be on the lookout for that next week. This is all done without a halter, and I will be explaining more about why I do this all without a halter later on. And so now we're just going to resume where we were with the weight tape. So did take a little break there, went and grabbed more treats, and now I am back and just continuing on with wrapping the weight tape around her belly and counting backwards from 2 and then 3. And I will eventually get to counting backwards from 5, and when I count backwards from 5, that will allow me to cinch the weight tape just right so I can take her weight measurement. And so that pretty much concludes today's video. And so I wanted to thank you all so much for watching, and I hope you enjoyed this short training session on Wednesday with Willow, and we hope to see you next week for a training video on how I taught Willow to deworm without the halter. See you guys next week.